Are we the only ones who can hear us?
Everyone can hear you. We have 32.
Everyone. Hi, everyone. Hi, all 32 people.
33, 34. We're going up.
Well, good morning, everyone. We're going to wait just a few more minutes. We have about 2/3 of you who have registered who are on the call. We'll wait just a few more minutes to see if a few others join. Are planning to be with us online, so we're going to get started. We want to start on time. I know you guys are all very, very busy, so thank you so much for taking the time to join us this morning. Before we officially get started, I wanted to ask you all to join me in pausing for just a moment and taking a very deep breath to settle our attention and just to focus on this learning opportunity and this time that we have together. There's an awful lot that's going on that's competing for our attention. So just take a deep breath to center ourselves, to be focused on the task at hand, which is learning to lead remote teams. And after you take that first breath, I'd like to ask you to take one more breath in appreciation for us all being able to join together, and really appreciation for the fact that we have each other to learn from and the knowledge that we will get through this together. So take one last deep breath and then we will go ahead and get started. Well, welcome to our very first Fieldstone webinar. Over the years, a number of people have asked us if we would do this, and we always said, well, you know, we're really about bringing people together and building relationships, and it's hard to do that online, but today is a new day for sure. So we have responded as quickly as we have been able to create some programs for you on an online platform, and today is the very first one that we're able to share with you. And I'm excited about this because as the coronavirus was unfolding the week of March 9th, we were hosting groups of people, book clubs and learning groups and the such. And leading remote teams was one of the biggest questions that people were coming to us with. How am I going to do this? And so I'm really excited to be able to kick off this new era of our work by having this webinar on this specific topic. I also want to share with you before we get started that we are working on numerous other fronts to bring you some other resources. We have another webinar on Thursday, which is with Kathy Druper-Duff. She's a phenomenal fundraising consultant and coach, and she will be hosting our second webinar Thursday at 9 o'clock to talk about how to do fundraising in the era of COVID-19, not only right now at this particular moment, but in the future, since there will be an impact for quite a long time. The link is available on our website, and if you are able to join us, that would be wonderful as well. On Wednesday at 4 o'clock, we are going to be hosting our very first Fieldstone at 4 online. We will do this every Wednesday for as long as everybody keeps showing up. And it's really going to be an open canvas for people to come together and to share their concerns, their joys, their sorrows, their challenges. It's a time for us to be together in community and to offer peer support, wisdom, and resources, just the same as we did in person, but we'll be doing it online now. And then we, hopefully you all have had an opportunity to participate in the survey that the University of San Diego Nonprofit Institute has put together. We have joined together with LISC and San Diego Grantmakers and Workforce Partnership to put that survey together in real time so that we're able to give information to our policymakers and to the public and donors about the challenges that you're all facing. So if you haven't had a chance yet to complete that survey, there's still time. And again, you'll find that link on our webpage as well. And then we are exploring two other options that I hope to have some more news for you later this week. One is a calendar that will allow nonprofits to be able to put their rescheduled galas and fundraising events on, so that as you're starting to do that planning, you'll be able to use that as a reference to make sure that you don't have a conflict with another major nonprofit that shares your same audience. And the other is something we're calling the Nonprofit Resource Exchange, which will really be a free marketplace for people to be able to share resources, materials, and people that they have that they're able to answer some needs of other nonprofit communities. Stay tuned for those things as well. If you have other needs or other ideas on ways that we can help, please let me know. That's how we always craft these things, is in response to the network and what they're experiencing and the needs and the gaps that are existing. So please don't hesitate to give us an email or a call at any time and let us know that you have an idea about something that we could be helpful with. Today's webinar is, as I've already shared with you, a direct response to feedback that we got from our members. And so I'm really, really grateful to Torrie. I called her as soon as everybody was sharing their need, and Torrie was the first one I thought of, and she answered the call right away. And I want to say that she answered the call right away as she's doing everything that you all are doing as well. And she's, you know, in the muck too with her team and her organization. So I'm really, really grateful to Torrie for making this a priority to be able to share her experience. So Torrie, thank you so much. I want to let you know that Torrie's going to do her presentation. It'll be a little, somewhere around an hour, give or take. You all are muted, but feel free to put questions either on your Q&A, which is on the tab in the bottom of your screen, or in the chat box, and we will get back to those probably sometime right around 10 o'clock as soon as Torrie's done with the presentation. And then I'll facilitate those questions that you have provided for us so that Torrie can answer those directly for you. I want you to know that this video or this webinar is being recorded, and we will make it available to you again and to those who weren't able to join us. And as we talked about some of the resources that we're sharing, for everyone who's registered, we will send out an email to follow up with all of the resources that we have talked about together. And if you have resources or things that you're using, if you want to put those up in the chat with a link or information on how we can find it, we will do our best to include that as well. As I shared with you earlier, what I love about our network is the coming together and the wisdom sharing. And when you really look at the totality of all of our members, there's really nothing that we can't address at some point. And as I shared with you as well earlier, Torrie was the first person that I thought of because of her experience as a CEO of Kids Included Together. Torrie has been the CEO since 2012, and during that time, she has taken a physically based San Diego nonprofit that had an office in Liberty Station to a global nonprofit that has 32 employees that work across the globe and reside and work in 15 states. It has been an all-remote team for over 2 years, and that is all under Torrie's leadership. So today, Torrie is going to share her experiences and some resources and have an opportunity for you to ask her some questions as well. Torrie is a very active member of the network. She was a graduate of our executive learning group. She is one of 3 Fieldstone fellows that we worked with over the years, and she currently works as a coach for us in the network. So thank you for all of that as well, Torrie. And with that, I'll pass it over to Torrie to get started.
All right. Hello, everybody. Janine called me last week to talk about this and see if this was something I was willing to do. And as she said, we're going through our own challenges with this crisis that we're living in right now. But there was no way I was going to say no to Janine, because Fieldstone has given me so much, and this community that you're all part of has given me so much. So I definitely wanted to do it. And as I thought about it and prepared it, I just thought, what a wonderful thing for us to be together during this time as well. So I'm also just grateful to be here with you this morning and spending a little time in community. I think it's something we all need right now. I saw the early registration list, and I saw a lot of my friends and colleagues over many, many years. I've spent my whole career in the nonprofit community in San Diego. And I believe in the strength of this community, and I believe that we will get through this challenge together. And I'm really grateful to have Fieldstone at a time like this to give us a place to convene and a place to commiserate and a place to share resources. So that's what I'm going to do today in the spirit of this. I put this presentation together yesterday, and my brain is really full of a lot of other things right now. So it's a bit of a brain dump. I'm going to do my best to get through it, but I think if you want to ask questions in the Q&A, then anything that I missed we'll cover at the end. So I wanted to say that. I'm going to give you a brief overview of how we came to be a remote working team. I'm going to share kind of a combination of leadership tips, management resources, ways to implement this, tools and things you need, and put some structure around it. So I hope that it will be useful. A couple of disclaimers. One is that I am coming at this from the perspective of a CEO. So there will be some things that are relevant to managers and informal leaders and just your team in general, but a lot of it is the leading this charge. So that's kind of the perspective I'm coming from. The second disclaimer is that this is just a whole new set of circumstances. So some of the things that I share may not be relevant in this exact situation we're dealing with, but I'm thinking that as we come out of this, people may decide that working remotely is a good thing for their team, at least part of the time. And so I think I wanted to share this anyway, just so that just you have the full picture of a transition to a remote workforce, even though you've had to transition a lot faster than we had to in our work. So those are my disclaimers. In case you're not familiar with Kids Included Together, we were founded in San Diego in 1997. We were an outgrowth of a program at the Lawrence Family Jewish Community Center. And for the first, 8 years of our existence, we worked just in San Diego, providing training and technical assistance to other nonprofits in how to include children with disabilities in their programs. We worked with the zoo, we worked with the New Children's Museum, we worked with all the Balboa Park museums, teaching them how to be inclusive of children with disabilities. This was a very unique mission, and other organizations outside of San Diego started to hear about it. We had a national conference and we brought in 300 people from across the country in about 2003, and people started saying, hey, I need this in my community and there's no kids included together there. Can you come help us learn how to do this? And so we started thinking about how to expand our organization. Then we had employees who wanted to keep working for KIT, but they wanted to move back home to where they were from, or the cost of living in San Diego was too expensive. And we didn't want to lose these valuable employees. And we were already thinking about what expansion looked like. And so we started figuring out how to have a few employees in other states. In about 4 years ago, I guess, our lease was coming due. So we had 3,500 square foot of office space for 18 employees who were located in San Diego, and we were going to have a lease renewal come up. And at that time, I started to think, wait a second, we're now doing our work in 48 states and 15 countries. We have employees who work full-time as full-time remote employees in North Carolina and in Massachusetts, and they are among our most productive employees, and we have figured out how to make it work for them. Why are we making people drive, an hour commute to get to an office in San Diego Monday through Friday? So the lease coming due really precipitated this shift of thinking of like, wait a minute, we already kind of know how to do it. We have a lot of the tools in place. Why couldn't we do this for everybody? So I asked our team if they were interested, our local San Diego team, if they were interested in trying to do some virtual work, and we would do it as a pilot. And so we initially did it as an opt-in, and anybody who wanted to experiment with it could. Everyone opted in, but everyone chose a different kind of structure for it. So some went 3 days remote, 2 days in the office. Some tried a 4-1, some tried completely remote. And we just experimented with a bunch of different permutations of what it would look like to work more virtually. And we did that over a pretty long period. We did that for maybe 4 months, where we just kind of eased ourselves into it. Then after about 4 months went by, we decided we would all try 100% remote, and we would see what that looked like. During this whole time, we were checking in frequently. We were having meetings where we would come together and ask, how's it going for you? What are the challenges? What are the benefits? We tracked a lot of data because that's kind of how we roll. We had a mood app that would send everybody a mood check 3 times a day, and they would click if they were feeling happy, sad, whatever, confused, whatever the feelings were. And we were then able to track their moods and their employee engagement as we shifted. And after that period of time, we all decided that remote was actually working really well, and everything we saw in the data, which I'll go into, was working really well. So we decided to go 100% virtual. This is about 2.5 years ago, and release a lot of our space back. So now we just have a small co-working space in Liberty Station of about 750 square feet that we use as like a little meeting room and kind of storing our stuff. So that is how we eased into this. And today I'm going to do a lot of sharing of what we learned, how it's gone over the last 2.5 years, the tools that we use, the challenges that we faced, and some of the things that we've learned from doing this work this way. Before we jump into it, I did want to share that, as Janine mentioned, I was one of the Fieldstone Fellows a couple of years ago, 2016, I think. And as a part of that, I had the privilege of attending the Harvard Business School Executive Leadership Program. And then I had a year of coaching from the wonderful Tom Hall. And it was really a transformational experience. And one thing that keeps sticking in my brain as we go through this challenging time is this definition of leadership that they taught us at the Harvard Executive Program. Ron Heifetz is a Harvard professor. He's written tons of books on leadership. Adaptive Leadership is a wonderful book. And this is his definition of leadership, that leadership is the process of bringing a new, generally unwelcome reality to an individual, organization, or setting, and helping them to successfully adapt to it. So that, I mean, is there any better definition of what we're going through right now as leaders than that? This is an unwelcome reality, and we are going to have to do what we can to help our people adapt to the new reality. And today we're talking about remote teams and working from home and what that looks like. But under the heading of coronavirus, there's so much more that we're helping people adapt to. So I just wanted to ground us in that frame of mind, that that's really our role, that there's a steep learning curve to learning how to be a productive, healthy, happy virtual employee. And because of what we're experiencing right now, that we're just going to have to get up that learning curve really fast. And we're going to have to help our teams get there really fast. We took probably 9 months to transition to this, and everybody was told, like, starting tomorrow, you work from home. So that is a completely different reality. And there's no more important time for the leadership skills that Fieldstone has been instilling in us over the life of the network. Okay, then let's see. This is my team of traveling trainers. So Janine mentioned that we are also going through challenging times right now. 50% of our work involves traveling places and doing group trainings. And this is my team of traveling trainers, plus there's 2 managers in there. And just exactly a month ago, we were all in North Carolina at a trainer retreat. And we were teaching these wonderful trainers. I'm going to try to get through this without crying. We were teaching these wonderful trainers new processes, new curriculum, because they were about to hit the road and deliver 600 days of in-person trainings at childcare centers, schools, recreation facilities, libraries, summer camp trainings, all across the world. And they have been grounded. They are quickly trying to pivot to teach in different ways, and some of the work can be done virtually, but in some cases, programs aren't operating, and so their staff aren't receiving professional development. There are no kids there. It's just a brand new reality for this team. And I myself am trying to figure out how to keep these people paid and on the payroll when 50% of our revenue just like evaporated overnight. So adapting is what we are doing right now too. So I just wanted to share that. These are 32 talented people that I work with. This is just the team of trainers, but we also have a call center. We have a digital content producing team, and we have some administrative folks as well. And we are all scrambling right now. So I feel your pain. We're all in it together. Okay. Now I'm going to back up to kind of when we thought about, could we be a virtual workforce? The considerations that we had. Some of this is out the window because you are not able to consider who can do it and who cannot at this point. You're just doing it. But I think this might help going forward if this lasts longer than we hope it will, or if you decide from this small experiment that you're forced to run that you really do like remote working and it's working for you, that these might be useful. I won't spend a lot of time here. But the first thing to know is that not everyone makes a great remote worker. It's just, there's a certain type of person, and we'll go through what that type of person is, and not every type of work can easily translate to being done remotely. You've probably already figured that out. Like the mail comes to the office. How are we going to process the mail? They're just things that it's hard to field work. It's hard for some things to be transferred, and it takes a lot of creativity. In our work, we do a lot of knowledge work. There's a lot of kind of deep thinking and deep kind of concentration that you need to do curriculum writing or report writing or research, and those things translate very nicely to working in a remote office, but some work doesn't. So that's something to consider. The type of person that does well, the profile of a person that does really well with remote work is someone who has very good communication skills. One thing we learned was that good written communication was more critical when you're working virtually. Oral communication is important too, but clear written communication became much more important. High emotional intelligence. There's just no time for drama. There's no space for that. People have to be pretty emotionally intelligent and resilient and able to overcome challenges when they're working in this way. They need the ability to work independently. So they need to be able to work kind of hands off with, micromanaging doesn't work well in a remote environment. People need to know what the job that needs to be done is and do it. And when they finish that, because you can get through work faster in a remote environment, they need to know what's next and they need to be able to go on and do it. So independent work is really, really critical, the ability to work independently. There are going to be snafus, there's going to be a lot of challenges, and someone who's resilient and can bounce back and just get in there and problem solve is a very valuable person. Tech skills are another thing. Everyone's having to learn how to use Zoom that didn't do it before. Everyone's having to navigate project management software. There's lots of tools in Microsoft Office that are really helpful in a virtual environment that people are having to figure out how to use. And you've got people all across the board who are great at technology, who have a feel for it and can figure it out, and people who are very tech averse or hesitant or afraid. So you have to make a plan for how you're going to increase people's tech skills. When we started doing this, we started having our savvier tech people do trainings for other people. And they do a lot of video screen shares to show people how to do different things, which is your young tech people know how to do this. So they can show how to navigate a website. They can show how to navigate, how to set something up in Microsoft Office. We use Salesforce. We have a lot of little screen share videos on how to do certain things in Salesforce. And so we spend a lot of time on the front end teaching people to use the technology that we were implementing. And then the other thing is just they need to have a good home office setup. When we started this, everyone had what we used to call a telecommuting agreement. And in the agreement, it said if they were going to work virtually, they needed to have high-speed internet, they needed to have a good chair, they needed to have a quiet space that was, kind of secluded. So we set up what a good office space would look like, and we taught them what that was. We let a lot of people take their office chairs home from the office if they lived in San Diego. If they don't live in San Diego, we let them order a chair. So having a good ergonomics is really an important part of it. People working from their bed or their couch, maybe that's fine for a little bit of time, but they really also need to think about ergonomics, and you have to train them and teach them and remind them of that. Okay, there's a lot going on this slide, but this is going to help me just trigger my memory of some of these things. So I will say that when we wanted to transition to this and I took it to the board of directors, they asked me questions like, how will you know that they're doing any work if you can't see them doing the work? So I mean, my team, the hardest trouble I have is keeping them from doing work. I really pulling them back is much harder than lighting a fire under them. So that really, I knew that wasn't going to be an issue with this team. But even with that, what we did find is that we had to change the way we manage and the way we think about the work. So we were no longer thinking about someone as a good employee or a productive employee if they showed up at 9 a.m. every day and they stayed till 5. That was not the metric we used. We had to change everything to kind of KPIs and metrics. So then we evaluated them based on the deliverables, the quality of the work being done, and not how much time it was taking to do it, or if we, the kind of softer part of you're all in the office and there's a friendly person who comes in early and stays late, and you're kind of mentally evaluating them based on that. Now it's really about the quality of the work they're producing. And are they meeting their deadlines? And we have boiled everything down to specific KPIs. So those trainers that you saw, they're required to do 65 training days a year. They have metrics on getting their reports in time, and they have percentages, and we really track and manage to those percentages. So that really changed how we think about managing their work. The other thing we found is that we're more interdependent than we thought we were. So everyone, if there's a kink, our work is so collaborative that if there's a kink in the chain, everybody knows it, and it's clear that somebody is watching Netflix all day and not doing their work. So it really turned out to be less of an issue than my board thought, and even less of an issue than I thought, because our work is so interconnected. People will know. And also our team was really concerned that people would think they were slacking, and so they kind of overdid it on the visibility, the showing of their work, the making sure that people knew that they were online, available, highly responsive, that was how they responded from a kind of professionalism point of view. We talked about ergonomics. Another thing we've learned over this time was that people felt isolated, and we had to be really intentional about overcoming this. And we had to be really intentional about finding new ways to connect. And there's slides where I'm going to go through that, but that was something we found. Something we learned, this is maybe going to be different in this weird time period we're in, but those of us who have busy families, young kids, lots going on in their lives, did not feel isolated or lonely. Those of us, like myself, who do not have kids in the household, we felt more isolated. As the CEO, I really struggled to get used to this way of working and to enjoy it, frankly, because as the CEO, there's very few people that have to talk to me to get their work done. You know, I have 3 direct reports. So I really missed the bumping into people in the hallway, the giving them a hug in the kitchen, the just checking in on how their days were. And when I would do that in this virtual environment, it would seem weird. It's like, why is she calling me? So I had to overcome that and figure out more casual ways of keeping in touch with people. And I had to ask my managers to give me information so that I would know if someone's grandmother died and I could write them a card. I mean, I really just had to change the way I think about communicating with my team. Transparency is even more important. I think we'll talk about this as the slides go on, but if you thought you were transparent before, you have to only triple it in this virtual work environment, because people need to see what's going on and they feel very anxious and nervous when they don't have a visual or they can't feel the vibe. I think when you go to the office, you can feel the vibe, and leaders set the tone, and you can feel that like everything's okay because I came to the office and everybody's here and we're all just doing our work and it's fine. But when you're working from your home office and you really can't see what else is going on in the rest of your office, people get anxious, and in the absence of good information, they will kind of generate their own information, and it usually skews bad. So you really have to just be over communicate, super transparent, and make everything you possibly can as visible as possible. And we'll talk about this a little more as it goes on. We also found that employees need more of their manager's time and attention, not less, especially as they're adapting to this. You know, coaching calls, being available, being responsive, door is always open, I'm always here if you need anything. And we found that employees really took up more of their manager's time. So to plan for that and plan that managers are going to spend a lot of time talking with employees and you know, clarifying expectations and all those things is just going to kind of take more on the front end, because they're going to feel a little unmoored and a little lost. And then on the employee side, we found it was really important for people to set boundaries. The other challenge, big challenge besides isolation with working remotely, is that your office is always there 24/7. And it's very hard to pull yourself away from it when there's more things you could do. So in the front end, we found people that were like working till 8 o'clock at night and they hadn't taken a break. So we really had to think about setting boundaries, and people came up with tons of creative ways they were going to do that. For a while, I set a timer, and when the timer would go off, I would play the Flintstones thing. I can't even sing it, but at the end of the Flintstones, when he, you know, punches out for the day, that would be kind of my audio cue that it was time to stop working and time to make dinner and enjoy my evening. The way we work, we don't care when people do the work. So if they want to, this is the flexibility piece. We found a lot of benefits in this. So as long as they're getting their work done, we do not, and we don't have very many hourly employees. Ours are mostly salaried. If they, you know, take a run in the afternoon and they come back and they do a couple hours in the evening, we do not care, but we still want them to create some boundaries for themselves so that they're not feeling like they're just working 24/7. Another thing we found was that there was more trust. So you have to let go of some of that management by watching people sit at their desks and pound on their, you know, laptops, to trusting that they're going to get the work done. And this triangle down at the bottom, one of my employees, when we had one of these sessions where we kind of came together and said, how is it going? One of my shyer employees came up to me at the end and she handed me a sticky note. And the sticky note had this drawn on it, her little drawing with her little handwriting. And what she told me was, I didn't want to say this in the meeting, but what I wanted to share with you is that this is what I think of when I think of remote working. I feel like the organization trusts me to be a professional and get my work done. That makes me feel empowered as a professional and as an employee. And then I feel more motivated to work harder for the organization. And I kept that little sticky up on my desk for quite a long time to remind myself of that. That when we trust people, they will rise to the occasion. We found a big increase in productivity. People thought productivity would go down. Actually, what happened was it went up. Some of the things people said were that, boy, I really had no idea how much time I was spending chit-chatting with people at the office. And when I don't have that, I can really get my work done. Or now I can be really I do have fewer distractions because people aren't popping in my door to ask questions all the time. We've really organized how I can do deep work and how I can respond to questions. People's health improved. We had all kinds of data on people who went off their diabetes medicine, who just somebody lost 30 pounds. And they said it was because they were eating better, because they were at home. And they were also finding they were getting back their commute time and they were using it for exercise. So taking walks during the day, going to a yoga class at 10 a.m., these were things they were never able to do before. So we found that a lot of people got a lot healthier. We found that fewer sick days were used. And we've always had pretty good retention. And, but I think during this whole time period, we didn't lose anybody. I will say that we lost one person because of the remote work thing who decided that she missed like Friday office dress up days, cupcakes in the kitchen for someone's birthday. And she was just like total extrovert. And she really needed that. She needed to go back to like an in-person office, so that we did lose one over the course of this time period, 3 years or so that we've been doing this. Alrighty. Obviously I have a lot to say about this topic. Ha! Okay. I love the rule of 3. I know Janine does too. I love alliteration. I know Janine does too. So I put together my 3 keys to successful virtual teams as a way to organize this: communication, collaboration, camaraderie. So communication, you have to provide the right tools. Remote communication is very, very different than when you are in a co-located office. So I think the first thing is that you have to proactively design for good communication and not expect that it's just going to happen on its own. You have to kind of manage the chaos. And so the best thing to do, I think, is to figure out which channels you're going to use for communication, and then teach people what to use each channel for. So how are you going to use email? What things are appropriate to be put in an email? What things are appropriate for like Slack or an instant messaging channel that you might use? What things are appropriate for your collaboration software? So how are you going to manage the communication? If you don't do that, and especially even early on before people get used to it, you'll find that people will send an email and they'll copy everyone because they don't want people to be out of the loop, and no one has any idea how to get to the people that they need to get to, and everyone sort of overcompensates. And then people's email inboxes are just absolutely flooded. So it's important to just make a standard protocol for what you use what information for. When we got these other channels set up, we found that like our emails in our inbox actually really, really just decreased because we have other ways of communicating with each other. Where can they ask for help? So we use Salesforce Chatter. We don't use Slack. We use Salesforce Chatter as our kind of virtual water cooler, and I'll show some examples of that. And we use Microsoft Teams a lot. And it's free, but we are on a paid Office 365 thing. But if you're not on that, I think Microsoft Teams is actually free. And there's an instant message tool in there, and we use that. And we'll talk about that. And if in the chat you want to give tech tools that you found or that you're using or your team likes, that's a great way to share too. A big thing to understand about moving from in-office to remote is that you're moving largely from synchronous communication, where everybody's just there and you can ask a question at any time. You can pop your head in somebody's office and say, hey, did you get that thing done? And remember, it's due by 3. Yeah, okay, I'll be ready. I'll send it to you at 2:45. That synchronous kind of communication is much harder in a remote environment. So you're moving to asynchronous communication. So you have to set up some protocols around this too. How quickly do you expect someone to respond to an email? Set up manage expectations around this. So one of the things that we did at first, and we've been able to move past this, but at first we work in 4 different time zones. And so we made 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Pacific time every day, like everybody was online at the same time. And so then you knew that during that time, you could get your quick question answered by anybody on the team. We'd use the instant message thing, and we'd say, hey, I had a question about this, and we just go back and forth. We've moved beyond that, and we are now used to asynchronous communication, and it's not been a problem. But that was a very useful thing in the early days because people really missed just being able to ask a random question and get help quickly. We also use Salesforce Chatter for that, and people can ask a question. I've got a client who needs this. Does anybody have any ideas? And people can then start a thread. So figuring that out and providing tools and protocols for people about what channels to use for what communication is absolutely huge. We also allowed people, because it was kind of chaotic at the beginning, we allowed them to set blocks in their calendar for deep work. So if you're working on a report and you don't want to be interrupted, we did a thing where we set our out of office settings to internal only. And you could say, hey, I'm working on finishing this curriculum piece and I'll be done at 1. If something is super urgent, send me a text. So we allowed people to kind of shut down their email for time periods so that they could get deep focused work done. And that really helped. Another thing that one of our team members did on her own accord was set up a communication preferences sheet. So with our name, phone number, email address, contact sheet, there's also communication preferences. And my team is all about inclusion and individualization. So if somebody would rather be texted than emailed or called than video chatted, they are allowing for that preference. So they made a sheet where everybody just got to say, call my kit phone or call my cell phone, because everybody's kind of working kind of differently. So it's not one size fits all. Okay, and then leadership. So if you think that you were over communicating before, now you have to at least double your communication as a leader. I have this thing for myself that I feel like I haven't communicated something enough unless I hear people repeating it back to me. When I hear people say things like Torrie always says, da 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 da, then I know I'm communicating enough. If I'm not getting that feedback, I have to over communicate, and it's hard to do it. So I think of my role in the organization, especially as we have transitioned to this, as the narrator. And I am creating a frame for how things are going. I'm creating a frame for what we're doing, and I'm narrating the journey for people so that they can see progress. It's just a lot harder when you're in your home office to kind of understand the bigger picture and how things are going. I try to be as clear as possible in every communication, because in the absence of information, people write their own story. And so I just really have to understand that my communication became even more of my job responsibility, and my communication matters. I have a rule of thumb, and I teach this rule of thumb to everybody, that the more negative or the more high stakes the communication is, the more personal it needs to be. So I try to never send bad news in an email. I try to, if it's something I need to communicate to everyone that's bad news, I will set up a Zoom call and we'll all get on it, and I will do it personally. Email is so difficult for tone, and a leader's job is to set the tone. And so I really do not want people to misunderstand, to misinterpret, to create, unneeded drama. So I use video a lot. So either we're on it all together, or if there's something I have to communicate that's negative or could be perceived as negative, I might make a video of myself if we can't get the team together, and send out the video instead of sending out an emails, because then I can use the tools of my tone of voice, my facial expression, my relaxed open body language, and help people understand how kind of the nature of what the flavor of what I'm communicating. So, and I try to get managers to do that as well. Do not give negative feedback over email or on Chatter, as personal as you can get. We found a lot of people picking up the phone a lot more often. Even our millennials who don't like using the phone got better at using the telephone. And we also use Microsoft Teams, so we video chat each other all the time. Another thing that's important, I think, is to be very generous with positive praise and gratitude. And this comes through well in all kinds of communications. So where negative information, critical feedback, those kinds of things are very hard to do in email and these kind of forms of communication, gratitude and praise is welcome in every form of communication, and you kind of can't go wrong there. And I think you kind of have to overdo it. People need it more. They need more recognition. They need more support. They need more cheering along when they are remote and by themselves than they do, because they're not getting that kind of group energy. And as the leader, I think it's your job to kind of provide that. We do a lot of Salesforce shout outs. I'm going to show that in a couple slides, I think. Oh, here's one. Okay, so we use Salesforce Chatter. So a couple of examples I just wanted to share from our team. You know, this is everybody's responsibility. I think as a leader, you set the tone, but everybody gets to, everyone should follow. If you model it, everyone should follow it. So this is, you know, this is from a couple days ago. So this is, we're in our yucky times here. And Tammy, our marketing officer, posted something to cheer everyone up. Great feedback that we got on our Facebook page about one of the trainers. And she posts it here. And then everyone gets a chance to cheer for that trainer. And so lots and lots of comments over the next few days of, Melissa, you're awesome. This is so great. So this kind of stuff is really, really important, because people just they just need this. They need this kind of support and enthusiasm kind of generated. And this is a great place that we do this. It's a great place to thank people. So here's Marissa. Marissa is our newest employee. She started like February 10th, I think. And she's had a lot of support from Jeremy and Philip as she learns the training curriculum and all of those things. And already, nobody's told her to do this. She's just picked up on it because she's seeing how we operate, and she's being, you know, acculturated, I guess, indoctrinated to the culture. And she does a shout out on Chatter, and, you know, lots of people will I pulled this earlier, but, you know, lots of people will say yes to that. So that's kind of how we use Chatter, and how people, one of the ways people stay in touch and support each other. Okay, so you got communication, then you have collaboration. So how are you going to collaborate when you're working virtually versus sitting at a table together, or getting, you know, your Post-it board up and kind of writing down and doing all your sticky note things? How are you going to do that in a remote environment? It's different. It takes time. The first thing you need is you need the right software. And if people have software they love, go ahead and put it in the Chatter. One of our teams loves Trello, because you can make cards and you can see the workflow, and people can go in on their own time and update it. And, you know, there's a lot of project management tools out there right now, and it's just figuring out which one is going to best meet the needs of your team. We're doing a new project and we're using Airtable, and people are finding that they love Airtable, and that it's kind of, it might become the new Trello. So you just have to, you know, get your tech savvier people on trying some free trials and figuring out which one is going to be best for the unique needs of your team. We do use Microsoft Teams a lot. We use it for almost all our video conferencing now. An example, I was having a one-on-one with one of my direct reports a couple weeks ago, before this all started, and we were talking about how that team needs to hire a new trainer, but they don't necessarily need a full-time trainer. Could they share a trainer with another team? And I said, I don't know, let's find out. And we just like clicked on the person's name, her video came up, she answered like her video call. She was actually on her headset talking to someone else on her team, and she said, well, I'll get back to you after I talk to this person. And we said, wait, we need that person too. And so they both kind of just jumped on the video, and 4 of us were having a collaborative discussion. So it really replicated what would have happened in an office where, you know, we would have been at a meeting and we would have said, go get Susie and go get Joe and come in here. And we were able to do that using Microsoft Teams. So that's a great, great tool. You have to have super clear roles and responsibilities in virtual collaboration. So people have to know what their job is, what other people's job is. This took a lot of time for us to figure out. You need to know who the buck stops with on each project. We do a lot of cross collaboration. So we adopted this RACI model, RACI. And so then for each part of the project, you decide, or each project, you decide who's responsible, who's accountable, who's consulted, and who's informed. So for instance, on a project we're working on, I, as the CEO, might be informed. Maybe the chief marketing officer is consulted. Maybe the curriculum director is actually responsible for it, but the chief programs officer is actually accountable. So we figure out for each project who has which role, and that keeps me from getting emails where I'm copied on everything. It just helps structure it so it's not just like a free-for-all. So that's been really helpful for us. Another thing is that we broke up into smaller teams. So we do have quite a big training team that you saw, but we have a lot of cross-collaborative smaller teams. So 3-4 people work really well. So you might have, on a curriculum team, you might have a trainer, you might have a support center specialist, you might have a digital content person, and the curriculum director, 4 people. I kind of like, if you've heard the Amazon 2 pizza rule, they say never have a team that is bigger than what you can feed with 2 pizzas, if you brought in 2 pizzas. So that's kind of a way to think about a rule. These rules that you create, they reduce uncertainty for people, and there's just a lot more uncertainty in a remote environment, and they build trust. So if you don't, I'm a person who doesn't really love rules that much, but we have to have the rules and the norms so that people can function and you can get things moving faster. That's really important. So collaboration, I imagine we'll have a bunch of questions about that when we get to question time. Okay, then there's this whole piece of your organization that I'm going to call camaraderie, but kind of esprit de corps, culture, feeling a sense of belonging. It's just much harder to feel a sense of togetherness and belonging when you're all in your different home offices. When we're in offices together, think of all the things that we use to convey kind of who we are and how we operate, right? We paint our brand colors in our office. We put our mission statement up really somewhere visible. We have a donor wall so we can see who's supporting us. You know, we create you know, spaces where people can come together. We have meeting rooms, might have a kitchen. We just have all these ways that we generate this sense of participation and belonging among our people. And when we're remote, we have to do it a completely different way. And this is where you can let your team really be creative. And my team they are very creative, and they've done a lot of cool stuff. So supporting social bonds. So you don't get the chit chat of the office anymore, but we still really need it. So yes, we can chit chat at the beginning of meetings on the video conference, but what are some other things we could do? Our program operations persons instituted a virtual water cooler chat using Zoom. So she, like, once a month, just throws one up on the schedule, and she'll put up a topic for it that you can either use the topic or you can just do whatever you want. So one time was give us a tour of your virtual office, and everybody kind of showed their workspace and gave a tour of that. Show your favorite picture of your family and tell us what that moment is. We did one on bucket list. What's on your bucket list? And everybody kind of helped each other with their bucket list. And you can just say, hey, what's going on? How's everybody doing? Or we also had, at the end of Zoom calls, we would have a group that would stay on at the end of the staff meeting to do the Walking Dead debrief. So we found ways to get those things that you just need, that people need, in different ways. Rewards and recognition, still very, very, very important. Find ways to do that. We do it informally. We also do it formally. We used to, when we were co-located, we would send around a clipboard with a birthday card on it because it was somebody's birthday. So maybe it's Mary's birthday coming up, and you know, everybody would get the birthday card to physically sign, and then we'd give it to them, and we'd put flowers on their desk, and, you know, we would have a birthday thing. So how do you do that in a remote environment? So we started doing e-cards, and everybody signs. An administrative person is in charge of this. The e-card goes around, everybody signs the e-card for the person, and on their birthday it automatically gets delivered to them. And the messages are funny. People write poems, you can put pictures in there, and people have really appreciated the personal messages they're getting on their birthday still. It doesn't have to be the physical card. It's still something that is meaningful to them. As I said, I ask the managers to keep me informed. I really like sending cards and things in the mail. I'm kind of keeping the postal system going, I guess. And so I will, if someone has a death in their family, if someone, you know, if their pet dies, I make a donation to one of our animal charities, and I send a card to the person. I just try to get as personal as I possibly can every way I can. So I do send a lot of cards. I send a physical card on people's birthdays. I send them congratulations cards. I will do Starbucks cards for everybody, like it's pumpkin chai latte. Here's a Starbucks card for everybody. And you can do that. That's automated through e-gift cards. So I just do a lot of ways. I'm finding a lot of new ways to keep rewards and recognition going. We've also done, we're launching a big partnership with Boys and Girls Clubs of America, and we really wanted to have a moment around it, but we're not in a place where we could do that physically. So our chief marketing officer put together these like small champagne and sparkling grape juice and little plastic champagne glasses, and we mailed them to everybody, and we had a meeting and everybody got their champagne, and we did the toast virtually. So you can get super creative and replicate almost everything you can do in person in a virtual environment. Okay. So find all those ways you can to keep people feeling good, and the other thing I guess is living in your culture. So lean into your culture and your values during this time. So I am always reinforcing one of our values is adaptability. It's like, here's where we're being adaptive. Here's where Kids Included Together is able to pivot like nobody else because we are great at being adaptable, or we're innovative. Like, we're going to come up with a new way to do this because we can figure it out. So find ways to imbue your values and your culture and describe it and narrate it for people so they can see, especially during this time, use those values to help you get through these challenges. Okay, then these are a bunch of random kind of pro tips, lessons learned for you. So, you know, everybody's culture will be different in terms of what you want for kind of professionalism. Are you okay with somebody participating in remote meetings from their bed with their pillows and their headboards in the back wearing pajamas? Maybe you're okay with that. My team operates a little differently, and we do a lot of public facing things. So we try to have kind of a high level of professionalism. So it's important for leaders to model that. So I have one of my executives has a rule that she only wears collared shirts to any work call. So that is her showing her professionalism in her own dress code. So model what that looks like for people. Deliver difficult information in as real time and as a personal way as possible. I said that already. Be generous with your praise and gratitude. Find ways to cheer for people. Help other people find ways to cheer for people. That goes a much further way than being critical. Be fully present on video meetings and set the expectation for that. So we're not checking email when we're on a meeting together. If we're texting each other, we're only texting. This goes a long way for trust. If people feel like they're giving a presentation and people are like snidely sending text messages around, that undermines your culture and your camaraderie. So you just have to make it explicit that we're going to be fully present when we're meeting together, just like we were in a room together in our office. So you can check your email after. And people will get used to that, and they'll say, oh, I'm just checking my email right now because someone needs help getting online, or I'm sending out the link to so-and-so. So just more visible and more narration, because people will infer the worst instead of the best, which is another one I should have put up here. But one thing we really had to instill in people was assume positive intent. So try to never assume that someone's doing something because they don't like you or they think your work is bad, whatever. Try to always assume the most positive intent that you can. And that's a habit and an intention that you have to set. Describing, again, it's hard to get tone from written communication sometimes, so you have to name your emotions. I find that if I say, I'm feeling really excited about this, that's a good thing, or I'm feeling disappointed that this happened, I'm super mad at this virus, but we're gonna get through it together. So, you know, if people don't have to infer something, there's just less of a chance for miscommunication. So I find that it's important to just be super intentional and super upfront about my own feelings and emotions because I set the tone. You have to be proactive about managing conflict. So this is where your managers are really helpful. They're meeting one-on-one and having one-on-one check-ins with people. Somebody asked Janine about a check-in form. So we do have that as a follow-up resource, but it's just a template. We found that we needed more frequent one-on-one check-ins. So like annual performance review is obviously not enough. So every other week check-ins, some teams or some managers meet weekly with their folks for 30 minutes. Some of us meet bi-weekly for 30 minutes. And there's a one-on-one checklist template that just we can go through on the questions. So we'll share that with you. You just have to have extreme clarity on the expectations and the goals so people know what they're responsible for. That's really important to their success. When you deliver feedback, there's another weird thing where now we're going to be delivering feedback over video maybe. We may even video. I mean, it's just horrible. It's horrible. But there's ways you can make it less horrible. Video is better. Because you can see someone's face and their body language, and you can keep open body language, and you can, you know, just have more control over your tone. If you position your be very careful about how you position your webcam. So make sure it's at eye level so that you're not like looking down on people. So just be looks like, and just always, you know, don't skip the small talk. So ask how people are doing, be warm, be friendly, you know, be you, be real. And that will come across on video. Okay, if you have conflict, same rules apply. If you got, you know, two people squabbling or not able to figure out how to work together on something, you just got to, all three of you get together, hash it out in person. I mean, on the video like you would. Don't let people get into snipey email fights. Just don't do it. Just, you know, if we're going to have a problem, we're going to solve it together, and we're going to get on a video and we're going to hash it out, or we're going to do it by phone. And you just have to use all those good conflict management things and not rely on email or written things to get you through it. It's just got to be personal. Okay. And knowing what's going on in people's lives. There's a lot going on in people's lives right now. And the more you can, the better you will be able to lead them through it. All right, so I'm almost at the end. That was super duper fast. So every now and then we do a chatter thread. Oh, I know, I forgot to say one thing. Things we do we have an established organization-wide cadence of communication. And this is kind of the pillars where people know every month we have a town hall, and all of us are going to get on a town hall together, and we have it like we have specific segments. I produce it almost like a show, right? So there's the Teach It Forward segment, and there's the Strength Spotlight segment. And so there's just these different, they come together for this one time a month. Then this goes back to how do you know they're doing things. Every Thursday, we do a thread on Chatter that I host, and it's called #What Are You Working On? And that's so that we can find it. The hashtag is just a search thing. But it's #What Are You Working On? And then everybody gives us a glimpse of their week. This week, I'm working on the financials for the next board meeting and sending out the agenda, and I'm writing a grant that's due on Friday or whatever. And then I always put like a fun question in there. You know, share, where's the, you know, what was your favorite vacation? Photos welcome. Or, you know, what's one thing you're doing to take care of yourself during this difficult time, or, you know, tips for things. So everybody gets to know each other a little better, and they also get read all the things that people are working on, and it's great for collaboration, because then they reach out to them and say, hey Jeremy, I saw that you were doing this thing for that client, and I already did something like that for this client, and maybe I could share it with you, or maybe we could partner together on this thing. So it just gives people visibility into what other people are working on. And it's also good for accountability, because everyone wants their Thursday chatter thread to look great, and nobody wants to say, I don't have anything to do. So we found that really helpful, and it's every Thursday, and people just know it's coming and they can count on it. So having a specific cadence to your communications is really important in your meetings when you're working virtually, and you can't just say, hey everybody, let's get in the conference room at 2. Getting them on the calendar and getting it kind of routinized is critical. So in those Thursday chatter threads, every so often, maybe every 6 months, we do a give us your remote work tips, and everybody puts their tips in there. So I pulled a bunch of them just to share from an employee's perspective. So hopefully you've been reading these. I won't read them to you. Some people use music. Some people have to have a routine. They get up in the morning, they, you know, they make their coffee, they get dressed, they sit down, boom, they're working. Everybody's different. People like to see each other. My team really loves each other. They really like to spend as much time in real time as possible. Here's a bunch more. Create a schedule. Moving, don't sit in your chair for 9 hours straight. Get up, move around. We found that maybe you're not having to walk down the hall to the printer, and so you're getting less exercise. So how are you gonna replicate that in your home? Get away from your desk. The funniest one here is about brushing her. Vivi says she brushes her teeth at random times of the day because it like makes her feel like the day started over, and it gives her a little boost if she brushes her teeth at like 11 a.m. or 3 p.m. And so that was one that people liked. So, you know, your team will figure this out, and they'll be really creative, and they can share their creative tips with each other, and that kind of generates some nice sense of community. Okay, oops. So let's do some Q&A. I hope that wasn't too fast, but anything we need to talk more about, we have plenty of time to do it. We have like 20 minutes we can talk.
Okay, thank you, Torrie. That was so rich with information. Just a reminder, we have emailed you the slide deck, so you have that. We will send that. We will send another email with other resources for you as well. A handful of questions. I'm just going to go from the beginning all the way through. The first one, Torrie, is does the employer provide reimbursements for home office expenses such as printers, ink, paper, etc.?
Yes, on print. Yes, on ink. Everybody has an office supply budget that they can manage. The thing that we don't pay for is internet access. So the only thing that we have done, I mean, we've kind of money driving to the office, so you've saved some money. You have internet at your home, you're just using that. So we're kind of expecting them to have their own internet access, high-speed internet access. The one exception we've made is that if we have some people living in some remote areas and they have to, their job is to deliver webinars or teach online classes, we've like paid for an upgrade for them because we need them to be able to do their work. But other than that, we're not paying for the internet, but we are paying for the other things, the printer, the ink, the paper, that stuff.
Okay, great. We have another question. How much time was set aside and who was involved in that process and who was communicated with, and was this shared with staff?
Yeah, I mean, each team operates we have some pretty, I mean, we are an earned revenue organization. We're a social enterprise. So we have contracts and we have client work. We have statements of work for each client. And so those are the deliverables that we're responsible for. So then each manager works with their team to identify in their role what is their workload. So I think it's between the manager and the employee to kind of agree on the workload. And once we've agreed on the workload, then we can manage the KPIs for that workload. So, we have 4 e-learning modules we have to create between now and June 30th. You're going to be responsible for 2. You're responsible for 2. Here's the deadlines. So it's collaborative in, so the trainers that I shared, they have, the average is 65 days that they're responsible for. Some of them will take a little lower training rate and number of training days, and they also have to produce 5 webinars in a year or something. So it's a little bit of a negotiation with everybody. And then once we've got that set, then that becomes their goals for the quarter, for the year. And then we just track against those goals.
Torrie, those indicators are set between the manager and the staff person individually.
They are, but they're based on the statements of work that we've agreed to with clients. Right. And then we take that work and then the manager and the employee agree on their individual scope of work, I guess.
Okay, I'm going to read you the next. Our organization had to move to remote work very suddenly due to COVID. One of the challenges we're having is that the team members are feeling like they don't have enough to do, as many of their roles changed dramatically. We don't have a lot to do. I reassure them in this time of uncertainty without promising that everything will be okay.
Oh man, isn't that what we are all struggling with right now? I think that people being busy is a good thing, right? Like right now when we're so anxious, being able to focus on your work and contribute and add value is going to be really helpful for people. It's kind of hard to figure that out, but could you use this time to upskill people? So that's one thing that we're doing. So we have a digital team that makes these online training, team that writes a curriculum. They're the subject matter experts. So we're trying to figure out, can the digital team teach them how to do it? Can they learn how to be digital content producers during this time so that they can learn new skills? And if we have to pivot away from in-person training for the next year, we'll have people who maybe have more job security because now they have more skills. So we're just having to think really flexibly about what people do. Giving them more things to do is better. I mean, we haven't even gone into the whole complexity about people having their kids at home now and how they remain productive with kids around, which is a whole nother thing. But I think professional development, learning new skills, can you use this time to do any organizational capacity building things that have been on your want to do list, but you've never had time for? We're not doing that because we have to do only things that generate revenue right now, really. Of what some might consider some roles might be feeling as downtime. Could they produce FAQs if they're doing guest facing or customer facing things? Could they write scripts? Could they create FAQs? Like, what are things that they could build now that might be useful in the future?
And I would just add, after this webinar, is a lot of the things that Torrie things that you want to be doing on your virtual meetings that uplift culture and all of that. Maybe these employees can start to be working on those things and generate some ideas because we don't know at this moment how long we're all going to be working from home. So these are all things that we want to be generative in thinking about. If this happens to stay in place for a while, what are the things that we should be developing now? And it's a big switch from the day-to-day pressure of getting things done to the time that, as Torrie has referred to, deep thinking to create things. So maybe that's an opportunity. I will also mention to you all that this nonprofit resource exchange, we're hoping will also be an opportunity for organizations who are trying very hard to keep their employees engaged but don't have enough work for them to do, to share with other organizations that are struggling to get all of their work done, And that may be an answer as well. Stay tuned for that. I'm hoping we have that up by the end of the week and you'll be able to explore that with other partners in the sector. Okay, moving on to the next question. Do you have recommendations for how to proceed with a staff person who doesn't possess the key skills? Not good at written communication, not independent, not resilient, or having good technical skills?
Yeah, that's really hard. In a normal, I mean, only because this is such an unusual situation. In a normal situation, you probably wouldn't have allowed that person. I mean, you would have thought about it ahead, and that person would not be a good candidate for virtual working. So, you know, we had a couple people who still remained in the office as kind of office admin folks. So, and not because they weren't good at communication or something, but just because the work didn't really translate to being done remotely. Someone has to be there when the UPS guy comes. So in a normal situation, maybe that person wouldn't be a candidate for it, and you would not either allow them to work remotely, or they'd maybe work remotely 1 day a week or 2 days a week, but not the whole time. Or maybe you'd have time to shore up their skills. Maybe you'd help them grow in writing skills or autonomy or some of these things. And then if the organization moved virtual and that person wasn't able to do it, they might manage themselves out where it might not be a good fit and they'd find something else. Right now you're stuck with like a weird set of circumstances that everybody's working remote. And if you're keeping them on the payroll, then you're kind of stuck with them. So I think I would think about how you divvy up the work and what kinds of work go to what people. So with my team today at 12:30, we are having we're having this weekly video call now. And one of my talking points is that job descriptions are out the window. Like what you thought you did is no longer what you do, and it's all hands on deck. So you're going to be asked to do things that you've never done before. You're going to be asked to do things that maybe you don't like doing. It's not your preferred task, but we are going to have to change who does what and how we get things done in this unusual time if we're going to keep all of our team members and we're going to keep everybody busy. We're just going to have to spread it around differently. The trainers don't have trainings to go out and do. They're going to work the call center. That's just the way it is. So it may be that you just have to think about not their job description, but what can they do that actually lean into their strengths? What can they do? If they're not good at written communication, are they good at the telephone? You know, can they be the person to answer the phone? Can they be the person to make calls? You just have to maybe think about all your strengths and capabilities differently in this time, and don't get tied to what their job actually is. I'm not an HR lawyer, but that's what we're doing. This is not legal advice. This is just leadership brainstorming.
Yeah. Okay, next question. Do you feel like synergy or innovation is at all sacrificed, even with technology? Or is there a strategy you intentionally use to generate innovation?
That's a good question. So again, in normal times, we bring our team together twice a year for a week. We call it Kidapalooza. And we all get together, and last year we often have it at Liberty Station. Last year we had it at UCSD, and we stayed in their international student dorms, and we do a lot of our innovation there. So we have we'll see what happens in the future, but we've had an innovation incubator, and people can pitch projects to the incubator, and then they get coaching and support on those projects. So we've been really intentional about innovation, and we do a lot of it when we come together in person. And then what we find is that sustains over the next 6 months. So we're generating a lot of that good in-person kind of excitement and idea bouncing off in real time when we come together in person. And then that kind of sustains us through to the next 6 months, and then we do it again. So that's hard. I mean, we don't know how long we're going to be working like this, but we do still have some in-person time that we do that. We get people in a room. So we haven't gone away from that completely, because I do feel like it is important, but also we've gotten pretty good at doing it over video conference too. Smaller groups are better for that. It's hard to do it when we have our whole team of 32 together. We can do that in an in-person room, but we can't do that in a virtual room. So we have smaller teams do the innovation pieces together and then bring a team.
Great.
Oh, I know there's one more thing. Sorry, on that. Another thing we do as part of our town hall is we allow anybody that wants to do what's called an open house. So anybody can hold their own open house for 30 minutes after the town hall to get feedback, advice, to brainstorm, to do some of this innovation stuff, and it's optional. So anybody who wants to show up to Alyssa's open house, Alyssa tends to do them a lot, on the top 5 trends that she's putting together, then anybody can sign up for that and stay for it. So that's one way we do it, is these 30-minute open houses where led by someone on the team. Another one is we have action learning groups sometimes. So we put together a report every year that's this like needs assessment thing. And then we have volunteers get on an action learning group, and then they're facilitated through it by one of our team members, and they do a lot of kind of innovation and brainstorming using Microsoft Teams and all the tools in that, not just the video conference, but the file sharing and all of that. So we do, that's yes, and also yes.
Great. Heading back to one of the questions we already talked about it with equipment and setting up offices, do you have, as an organization, a home office budget for each employee? Is it per year, per month?
We took our office supply budget that we had because we don't really need supplies in the, in the little co-working space we have now. So we just divvied that up by person and gave it to them. And I think it's like $500 a person. So if they want to use that on a chair, we don't care. That's fine. That's your budget. If they want to use it on ink all year, whatever. So because not everybody needs, just depending on what their job is, it's different. So some people use a lot of ink and paper and a printer. Some people don't. The trainers, we have a fulfillment center and all their materials get shipped for them. So they're not doing a lot of printing, but they might need something else. So it's just not one size fits all. So we just kind of created kind of a budget and let people manage their own. We're different in a lot of ways. And one of the ways is like most of our employees are salaried. We don't have a lot of entry-level folks. We have people who've been with us a super long time, and we just have a really high level of trust, and we give them a high level of autonomy.
Great. Torrie, can you talk about working with clients remotely and maintaining confidentiality, especially with a focus on if you have to pair volunteers with people from vulnerable populations?
Probably you need to step up your guidelines and your SOPs around that. We have a call center staffed by inclusion specialists. So anyone who works in childcare programs, in after-school programs in schools could call this call center and talk about a child. So we have a very kind of strict protocol for them about what they document. So the provider on the call might say the kid's name is Christopher, but our team has a protocol of how they handle that information and where they write it and where they put it and how they document it. So this is like a whole new world. And so probably you just need to take a look at those processes that you have in place and see if they cover you in this new reality where you have, virtual communication, what's being recorded, what's not being recorded, how are you storing the recording? I think you just have to case by case think about what your situation is and how you're going to protect the confidentiality and then train people on it. Mm-hmm. A lot of it is just about teaching people.
Sorry. I would also recommend the Identity Theft Resource Center, another member of the Fieldstone Leadership Network. They have great resources on, especially updated ones now, on things organizations need to do amidst COVID. So I would check their website as well for some additional resources. I'm going to go through the next ones really quickly since we are running out of time and we still have a number of questions. The first one is, how do you recommend we get the CEO and upper management on board with telecommuting? Currently, we're having a difficult time with staff working remotely and trusting that they are in fact working. And I know, Torrie, you talked to that a little bit, but I didn't know if you had anything more specific to add as a resource for this person.
I'm not sure if the situation is that, I mean, I think everybody's supposed to work from home. So that ship seems like it's sailed. I don't know if there's anybody, I mean, there's essential personnel maybe that are going somewhere, but in general, it seems like we're all being asked to work remotely. I will say that it's a learning curve. So it's going to take time and people are going to get better at it as they go. So you kind of just you have to provide a lot of support on the front end and you have to know that it's going to evolve. So people, I mean, this is also just like a weird time, right? If people might be spending a little time with too much time with CNN on right now, they're going to get tired of that and they're going to get back to work. So I think it's just like none of the same business as usual doesn't apply. But I think in terms of getting used to teleworking, that it just takes time and you have to give it the time and you have to just ask people what they need, how they're doing. Do they feel like they're able to be productive? Just be as open, allow for open and honest communication so that you don't put people in a position of having to lie to you and say, oh yeah, I'm totally getting my 8 hours a day and no problem. Like, what can we do to make this easier for you? What can we do to make it better? You know, because people want to add value. People do not want to sit on their couch and watch Netflix and charge you for it. They don't want to. They want to feel engaged. They want to contribute. They want to add value. They want to do good in the world, especially right now. So we just have to set up as leaders, we have to set the conditions for them to be able to do that. And that is just going to take a lot of transparency and open communication and allowing people to say, you know what, my 3-year-old's home and it's really hard right now. And I don't know how I'm going to get my work done. And the government is providing programs for that. So we have to let employees know about that too. But in terms of leadership, I think it's just hard at first. I mean, my experience was very difficult at first. My employees were loving it and I was hating it for a while. And it just takes a while to get there. And part of it is because as the CEO, it's like, now where are your people? You cannot see the whites of their eyes and know that they're doing okay. And it's hard. So it just is a process and we just have to trust the process. That's sort of a ramble, but.
Torrie, a couple of quick ones. Have you developed a plan if managers start getting sick?
Yeah.
Will employees be able to continue independent work? And will other managers need to step in for other teams? And we do have a question about the difference between having salaried employees versus hourly employees. So I'm going to just throw that into this big question.
Yes. I mean, right now our teams are doing workforce planning. So we are figuring out which of our work that is usually done in person can be made virtual, what we can get ahead on. We are working with our contract people to see if the work that we were going to do from September to December, can we do it now, and then kind of trade off. So we're figuring out workforce planning this week. And we are also figuring out plans for, one, we're asking people to work down their PTO, and two, contingency planning for if people get sick. We have a pretty deep bench in most areas. So I think for the most part, if a manager's out, someone will easily be able to step up. And we have just lots of good systems in place, reports on Salesforce. We have Salesforce really built out. So it'd be easy for them to go in and step into someone else's spot. We've just planned for that. And partly it's because we travel so much and we've been doing remote for a couple of years. We've just kind of figured that out. So yes, that's part of the workforce planning. And two, hourly people versus salaried people. What's the question about that?
I think it's more about managing workload, sick leave. Is there a difference between hourly and salaried?
I mean, only
people?
in the federal rules that apply are different. Our part-time people are the only part-time people we have are call center employees. So they are working, one works 24 hours a week and one works 30 hours a week. So we are backfilling trainers into the sports center. So I don't expect them to be, the hourly folks, to be too disrupted by this. And there's just like a lot of new stuff coming down federally about enhanced sick leave and expanding FMLA, stuff that we're trying to figure out.
Next question. What do you do with a staff whose job isn't connected to a desk and is a great employee but doesn't lean into the virtual collaboration?
That's a good question. I mean, there's a combination of, you might have to say, look, these are unusual times and this is what we're doing right now. And so we're going to try to make it work for you, but we need you to meet us halfway, because this is the option for working. And then I don't know, I mean, I don't know if you can, if people don't want to do it, you know, it looks like there's going to be leave time available. If they need to take leave, then maybe they should plan to take some leave. I don't know that I have too much more to offer on that. I mean, some people are, yeah, people, a lot of people have jobs. I mean, our trainers have jobs where they're out in the field and they love it. And they spend a lot of in-person time in childcare centers, and they're not doing that right now. But what are their options? You know, they're going to work the call center or not be employed.
Right. And some of these things don't have technical answers. They have to be adaptive. And this is a time where we're all going to have to explore and be creative in our leadership and thinking things through in a different way.
Yeah.
Also with employees, there will be lots of new laws. We do have on our website a resource list, and it also does have a link to, for California, the new employment laws that are being interpreted amidst COVID. So that's there for you as well. That would probably be more for somebody who A, doesn't want to work from home and is giving you problems, or isn't a good employee for this type of situation in the long term. The last question that we have is, I think, also a leadership question. I think it's broader than very specifics. And Torrie, you did kind of touch on this a little bit, but the question is, how are you handling or recommend we handle staff productivity when we have most telecommuting staff with kids at home? What are really the expectations of their work with these circumstances?
Okay, that's a good one, because I asked my outsourced HR team this question last week because my people are concerned about it. Their biggest concern is that they won't be able to be productive in this time because now they're expected to homeschool their kids too. So, you know, our telecommuting agreement was that you're not doing childcare while you're working. So even if you have a you know, 1-year-old, if you're working for us and you have a full-time job, you must have childcare. What is your plan for childcare? So that was part of our previous telecommuting agreement. So now we're doing the same thing. So we're asking people to, we've decided to take the last 2 weeks of March as like adaptive period, right? We're going to be flexible. We're all going to figure it out. We're all, you know, getting used to what this new reality means. Your family's home. You're just trying to make it work. This week, we are asking people to create their plan for how they're going to deal with childcare and go through it with their manager. So, because we don't know what those things are. Someone had their sister doing childcare for them. Okay, that's great. You know, maybe they're going to offset with their spouse who's also working from home, and one of them's going to do childcare and they're going to switch. Whatever their plan is, they need to come up with a plan. They need to bring it to their supervisor, and they need to go over it. We need to just make sure that you can still be productive during this time. There's resources that exist. One is a lot of our people have a lot of accrued PTO. So we're going to ask them to use PTO if they need to just focus on their family. If anybody wants to take an unpaid sabbatical so they can focus on their family, we welcome it. We'll hold their job open. That is fine. And then the other one is that part of the first Response Act that was passed, I think last Wednesday, there are 10 extra sick leave days that are added to all employers under 500, which is probably most of us on this call. And they can be, one of the reasons they could be used is for childcare. There's some stipulations around that. It's 2/3 of your salary or something. But if people want to take that time and they pair it with the sick leave they already get, that could give them 3 weeks or a month of not working and just focusing on their family if they can't get childcare. So that's how we're handling it at this point, is asking them to make a plan. If they don't have reliable childcare, to take some kind of leave, whether it's their own PTO or using this new sick leave benefit. And then we're just going to have to see how it goes, because we don't know if we're in this for a month or 3 months or 2 weeks. No one seems to know. So that's how we're handling it at this point. It's a concern.
Okay. Well, we've gone about 5 minutes over. So thank you to all of you who stayed with us. My gratitude again to Torrie. This was just, I think, really rich and informative tips and resources that we can use going forward. So thanks to all of you who joined us. And again, if you have any questions or you need anything from us or we can be helpful to you in any way, please know that we're here and we would love to be able to help you. Hope to see many of you on our webinar on Thursday and at Fieldstone at 4 on Wednesday. We'll continue this conversation and continue working together to get through. So be well, everyone. Keep washing
Thank you,
your
everybody.
hands.
Hang in there.
And we'll see you soon. And Torrie, thank you so very much.
Of course.
Bye, everyone.